to school and spend 5 years of their life studying law and then leaves it for something completely different and unrelated, painting. And then from there also becomes a photographer with a difference. Well, he did. Kelechi Amadi-Obi. He is my guest on Not Your 9 to 5 show today.
I've always been an artist, right from primary school, you know the usual best artist of the class, all those kind of things, drawing comic characters and all those. And this has always been my life. I've always been an image maker in one way or the other, just telling stories with visual art. And I mean, I grew up in Omahia. My father was a high court judge. My mother was the headmistress of our primary school. And there was no gallery, there was no art school. So I didn't know anybody makes a living with art. I don't know if you get that kind of thing. So I decided that, okay, since in my house, there are only two professions that are recognized, law and medicine. I decided that I'm sure I'll be okay as a lawyer. So I went to study law in University of Nigeria. And that's when I realized that, whoa, wait a minute. There are people living that life. But before then, I was absolutely obsessed with the whole concept of being an artist. So as a secondary school kid, I had read the whole art history, the Renaissance, all the Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt. I had them as my idols, you understand? But they all seemed to be all these distant characters, in a fairy tale. Because, well, I had never met an artist. So when I got to University of Nigeria, I went to Enugu campus because I was studying law. I encountered, Aka group of artists. They had this group of artists in Enugu from Osoka and all these places called Aka Group. Amazing. Tayo Adenaike, Bona, Isikak Ensien. These guys, they were exhibiting in Bona Gallery. I went to the exhibition. I was blown away. That was when I realized that, wow, I keep dreaming about being an artist, but I thought it was a pipe dream. But now I can see real human beings who are living all their life just creating, and that opened my eyes. But then I was studying law, and I immediately got into a conflict between the course I was studying and and my passion, So I needed to resolve that. At some point, I wanted to change course, but I changed my mind because by year 3, I had formed a popular design business in university called the Zulu, like Shaka Zulu. Well, I watched the movie Shaka Zulu and I was inspired. I said, look at this black guy. Just kidnap some white people during colonial time, turn them to his slaves. That was nice, And I took the name Shaka Zulu. Well, I'll just call it D-Zulu, D-E-E, then Zulu. Anybody that went to UNEC at that period would know me as the Zulu, So I started making posters. I started making portraits, That was when I developed the notion that all you needed to do was to stand out. That was when I learned the strength of building a brand. I realized that all I needed to do with my skills in order to survive was to solve problems, you know. So I became a painter, you know. But you know, the truth is that photography came much later. So at the end of the day, I started practicing art in Lagos. Lagos, that was how I came to Lagos. I came to Lagos because of law school. But by the time I came to Lagos, I realized that there's an energy about this town. You know, no other place, city was like it. Too many people, there was this energy. Everybody was in a hurry. You know, that kind of thing. And I loved it. You know, but that wasn't the first time I came to Lagos. While I was in school, I came on holidays, you know, to Lagos. And that was when I realized that these Lagosians are crazy, you know. They'll pay for anything. You know, it was amazing. That was when I realized I would never be a poor man, even if I wanted to do art. I will survive. The first time I came to Lagos, you know, I also noticed that people were willing to pay even, you know, quite a bit, you know, for art. So by the time I got to law school, I had already decided I was going to be an artist. But I didn't want, you know, to drop out of school. I wanted to make sure so I graduated from school, got my BL, and then, you know, went to law school and made sure I didn't flunk law school either. And I'm so happy I did that, because at the end of the day, some of those things I learned, you know, are becoming very useful, you know, in my life as an artist. Being a lawyer sort of prepares you, gives you kind of knowledge, a feeling of authority, you know, because they say ignorance of the law is no excuse, which means everybody should be a lawyer, actually. So the more you know about the law, the more confident you are about your environment. You know the rules of engagement. And to tell you the truth, some of the difficult rules are the rules of engagement when it comes to intellectual property. You know, and being an artist and understanding the importance of intellectual property and the power of it put me in a bit of an advantage. You know, while creating my work, I knew the value of what I was creating. I knew the power of it. Legally, at least, if you get what I mean. I said, I'm going to be an artist. So what do you do as an artist? Well, you draw. So I started to draw. I said, well, what am I going to draw? I didn't go to art school. I don't even know what this is all about. So I read all these books. And they said, well, if you're an artist, dig deep into yourself and express what it is you are interested in. I said, so what am I interested in? This place is full of chaos. So I started to draw the chaos of Lagos, you know. So I started to paint Ojuelegba bus stop, Yaba bus stop, you know, just downfall buses and people rushing, the hustle and bustle. And then, you know, that was it. I just started making these kind of drawings based on what I see and what I felt. And it wasn't easy, you know. I was just there. I didn't know any collectors, didn't know any. So, you know, it was tough. A lot of people thought I was a bit nuts, you know, because, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. You don't know any collectors. You don't know whether people like what you're creating. And you're just spending your time creating. Creating for who? And that's the dilemma of the artist, you know. That is the vulnerability of being an artist. You know, you create from your innermost self, and then how do you sell it? You understand? So I went to the art shop with some of my drawings. I was going to buy more material. The owner of the shop said, these things for sale? I said, yes. He said, how much? I said, oh, you know, I hadn't actually thought about the price. So I just mentioned an amount I thought would be nice. He bought everything. And I got some cash in my pocket. I said, oh, wow, okay. I'm not going to die of hunger. You know, and I quickly bought some watercolor papers, bought some oil paint and some canvas, and went back and continued painting. And that was a real shot in the arm. That made me realize that, well, people would like these things I'm doing. I was very sure I would make it because, you know, this was something I loved doing. But you can always have that voice at the back of your mind telling you that, Kelechi, what if, what if, what if? You understand? Everybody has those fears. But I was stubborn, you know. But those few successes, solidified my resolve, you know. And the question now is, how did I get into photography? Well, to cut a long story short, I had an exhibition at Russian Cultural Center with my paintings in 1997. It was huge. I made big sales, and I got ushered into the League of Contemporary Artists in Lagos. And from then on, I wasn't making paintings and looking for who to buy them. I couldn't meet up with demand. I moved out of my aunt's place, moved into the house where I'm living now, and, had my own studio, converted the sitting room to a gallery, the big bedroom to a painting studio. And it became very beautiful. I mean, I started having so much fun creating what I wanted. I then moved into painting the human form, nudes actually, and that became another obsession. But then I told you that there was a connection between my reading law and an understanding of intellectual property. And I realized that, each work you make is imbued with some legal real estate, as you would say, values legally, which is called copyright, the right to make copies of it. So by law, even though you have sold the physical painting, to an individual, the copyright is still retained by you, which is amazing. So he has the physical work, but he does not have the right to make copies of it and exploit the, economic gains of making copies. So I thought to myself, but how will you exercise your copyrights if you don't have a copy yourself? If you have sold a painting to a client, he has physical possession of it. That is his right, because you've sold the physical work to him. And he may decide to deny you access to it. It is within his right. So if you did not make a good copy of it, then how will you exercise your copyrights? So that was when I discovered that a high-end, high-resolution photography was a must for each of my works. So I would find that I started shooting medium format, then it was film, and then I have an archive of every single painting I've ever made. So that was how photography started coming into my world. So I started to learn how to make high-end copies of these works. At the same time, I started taking photographs as reference materials for my paintings, especially when I started studying the human form. And gradually, people started liking the photographs I had taken as references for my paintings. And then I started getting invited to, I got invited to an exhibition in Mali. It was in 2000. Somebody was going to do, there's this biennale that happens in Mali where African photography, the best in African photography come to exhibit their work in Mali. And I got invited to represent Nigeria alongside about 11 Nigerian photographers. There was this German photographer, Nigerian born, Bode Akimbi. He came to Nigeria. He was curating that exhibition. And he called me. He said he liked my work. Somebody told him I had a collection. And I said, wow, I'm not even a photographer yet. And I'm getting invited among top creative photographers. And there were a lot of young photographers there too. People like T.Y. Bello, Uche James Hiroha. Paul Jekere was exhibiting, but his son, Amaeze Ojekere, was representing him. And that was when my eye got open to the world of photography. In those days, there was no Instagram, there was no YouTube, and I saw all these photographers from around the world, and I was looking at their work, fine art photography, creative work. And there and then, myself, Uche, T.Y. Bello, and Amaeze Ojekere, we decided that we're going to form a group called Depth of Field. to encourage ourselves to keep creating because, well, nobody was appreciating that kind of work. The only photography people wanted was to make portraits or cover events and, things like that. So I started looking at photography more seriously. I was like, And then people started calling me, advertising agencies, to say, we would like to commission you to shoot an ad campaign. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So gradually my photography started picking up. While I was still a painter, but I then had caught the photography bug, So shoot, go to the dark room, develop, print, it was like that. And gradually my career as a photographer started taking off. I started shooting ad campaigns, started shooting portraits. But then depth of field was on fire as a group. We had become quite famous on the international photography circuit, So curators would fly to Nigeria to curate our work. And then before we knew it, we were exhibiting all over the world. We went to France, we went to New York. I had an exhibition at South London Gallery. Had 2 exhibitions in Germany. They flew us to Brussels, So it was like wonderful. I don't know if you understand. Photography was taking me all over the world and we were getting published, curators. It's not easy to have creatives come together. It's a very difficult thing to do. But so people are fascinated with us and our, projects. Through my travels with depth of field, I came to realize that all these curators that were coming to look through our work and decide what we're going to exhibit seem to gravitate towards the more gritty photographs. They seem to look more to photographs that depicted hardship and their own perception of what Africa ought to be. A little bit of grit, cracked walls, anything that is gritty. Photograph of traffic, with molars and, those exotic African perceptions. And one day I woke up and I said, who are these people and why are they so interested in these photographs? And I started to question, I said, who are their own photographers and what are they shooting? Their most valued photographers. Okay, who are the most highly paid photographers in Europe and America? And what are they shooting? So names like Annie Leibovitz, Herb Ritz, Mapplethorpe, Mario Testino, McKnight, they started coming to me, you understand? I start to look at what they're shooting. They're all shooting for Vogue, Vanity Fair, Rolling Stones, these magazines. They're shooting editorials, I was like, And I look at those editorials and I'm like, they're shooting fantasies, not reality. They're shooting dreams. They're shooting alternate existence that could be. So when you take Beyonce, okay, and you bring a team of hairstylists, stylists, makeup, skin, another team of retouchers, with a creative team that actually tries to tell a story, and then you put her in a certain scenario and you shoot. That is not reality. It's a lie. It's a dream that is presented to the world of what could be or what should be. It appeals to people's ability to dream. And I saw that was lacking in our place. I saw that. In those days, when the Nollywood artist is being put on the cover of a magazine, they just went to their album and picked one picture. Or they went to a roadside studio and just took a picture there and just put. I looked at it. I looked at the picture of Madonna. I looked at the picture of, I said, so I start to see a conspiracy inside my head. I said, they're paying big money to their photographers to shoot dreams and fantasies and portray them in the best light, while they give NGO and charity money to our photographers to show the worst of us. So I just decided that I was going to stop going for all those exhibitions. I was going to come back, settle in Nigeria, and only shoot the best of the best of this continent. So I decided that the purpose of my skill and the purpose of my photography was to liberate the Black man. Because perception is reality. And our major problem is years and years and centuries, actually, of abuse, of misguided perception, foisted on us through the power of gunpowder. Then I started to shoot super entrepreneurs, I want to shoot, the big oil moguls, these people who have made money and who are showing that we are not just beggars in this continent. And I decided also to shoot landscapes. I decided to shoot architecture, I started to see that, oh my goodness, I started to shoot Lagos, like Lagos Island. And it starts to look like Manhattan. I remember the first time I traveled to New York, I was in the middle of, like Times Square, and I could swear I was looking at pure water sachet on the road, man. I was like, this place is just as dirty as CMS. Area boys everywhere, beggars. I said, what is going on? But when I Googled the place, I'm seeing the best photographs. I said, perception. But then the people that live in Manhattan, they believe in the place. When I call them, I say, but this place doesn't look so cool. They say, Kelechi, relax. You see that building down there? That's Bill Gates' office. If you go further down, you see that's Google office. Inside that place, they're making more money than the whole of Africa. I said, okay. Now I can feel the narrative from the people that give significance to this great place. But then it is true perception. And I say, being a photographer makes you a priest at the altar of first impressions. And if our people do keep showing pictures of charity and we keep sending out poverty porn to the rest of the world, they will never take us serious. There will be no evidence of genius that we are. And I have nothing against shooting that. It is also a different reality, but it is not the only reality. Because, I listened to Chimamanda talk about being confined to one story. No people are confined to one story. They are the ups and downs. So why do they only play up and downs? And you see well-educated Africans telling you there's something wrong with the Black man. Ridiculous. Our perception of who we are has been skewed through imagery, negative imagery. And so that is what pushes me, and that is what motivates me, and that is what created this other Kelechi Amadi-Obi that is shooting all these people you are talking about. It's a story of triumph, a story of defiance, and a story of progress for the continent. But I never had a 9 to 5, Well, I did go to a law firm during my youth corps and spent about 2 weeks before I said, okay, that's it, I wouldn't call that having worked, but I really wanted to know what I was missing. And the truth is that art is an interesting thing. You're required to be a free bird. You cannot be caged. You need to be impetuous to discover new things. And, the 9 to 5 becomes a cage, for people like me. But we also take risks. What if nobody likes what you create? So I believe it is in my nature. It is the path I have chosen. Never go back on that. My name is Kelechi Amadi-Obi. I'm a photographer. I like to call myself a storyteller. These days I'm making films. It's a dream, it's an obsession with liberating the mind of our brothers and sisters in Africa and beyond. It makes me happy, provided me with enough money to take care of my needs. It's not your regular 9 to 5, it's my life.